daily soccer podcast with the Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello, welcome back to the GSPN Daily Manchester United podcast. For today's episode, you're joined by me, Sam Brady, and I'm joined once again by Tom. Tom, mate, how are we? I know, obviously, you were on yesterday's episode, and I heard a bit about the review. But how are we, mate? How's your weekend been? And I suppose your Sunday, you're a bit happier today, finally, after a win.
Yeah, well, we have to feel happy that we've won, but we can't feel like we are back because we're nowhere near back. We've just beaten Burnley at Old Trafford despite losing the lead twice. And I suppose Sunday's got better, with City losing away at Brighton. A friend of mine who I went to the Brighton game against Fulham a couple of weekends before, he was also at that game, and he'll be a very, very happy man, and so will we. So will we. But now we've got the Manchester Derby next up, which I think when it comes around, we can go into it with a little bit more optimism. Although having said that, that won't be without problems because we've obviously lost Cunia due to injury yesterday. I don't think we know for certain what that injury is, unless you can fill me in on what it is. But going into the international break, I think we can look on with a little bit more happiness. But these next 4 games before the international break after that, it's a pivotal point in our season, most certainly.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point you make there. Actually, I think obviously the start of the season. I mean, even for City's point of view, to be honest, it's been a bit hit and miss. I remember the first week they battered Wolves, and everyone said, "Have we sort of been sleeping on City, and are they just the obvious ones to go on and win the league again?" But then a home loss to Spurs, and now an away loss to Brighton, and now United, from a United point of view, going into that game against City. Now, I guess there's a slight bit of sort of silver lining to that grey cloud that was that we were sort of going into that game, especially after Grimsby. And obviously, you gave most of your instant reaction and your opinions straight after the game. And if you haven't listened to that episode, please do check that one out after this one. Of course, you and Kieran were on that with your post-match reaction. But what were your reactions to sort of the United players' reactions? It sort of felt a bit more like relief than anything. I think at the end when Bruno scored, once again Amorim couldn't bear to watch the pen. He just sort of looked off into the Stretford end to see if it hit the back of the net, and thank God it did for Bruno, because as I was watching it yesterday, I said, of course, it comes down to a penalty. What else? Obviously, with the drama of the penalty away at Craven Cottage and against Grimsby, I thought, here we go again. But he for our sake and everyone's sake, he scored it and secured us a win. So what did you make of the reaction? Everyone was sort of saying, guys, chill out. It's only a win against Burnley. It's not like you've won the World Cup or anything. So.
Well, those were the words of Paul Merson, wasn't it? They celebrate like they won the World Cup. In regards to the first part of your question with the players' reactions, they look happy. They look massively relieved. And they have every reason to feel that way because they clearly care. They clearly care to see Manchester United do well, and so should the manager. But I'm still not liking the fact that Ruben Emmer is sitting down. I don't know whether it almost like he was trying to go to sleep or something whilst that penalty is taken. I don't know if it's just his way of doing it in a bid to not put the players off when he's standing on the touchline just watching. I think he just wants to sort of remain out of picture just so that he's not putting the players under too much pressure in such a vital moment. He wants those players to be as cool as possible when taking penalties like this, especially when you've got 70,000 people watching at Old Trafford.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that Amorim needs to look back on and not sort of almost look like he's neglecting the moment, because these are the kind of moments you should be up for. This is why you signed up to be Manchester United manager. Fernandes taking that penalty, I mean, on the back of the one he missed at Fulham the weekend before, I'm glad he got off the mark finally, but we need a whole lot more than what we got, I think, from yesterday. It was better compared to the previous couple of games before against Grimsby and Fulham, but it's the big one next at the Etihad, one of the toughest games that we're going to have all season. We've got to be ready for it. City have lost their last 2. We've just got off the mark this time around, and hopefully we can use that as a little bit of confidence going into the Etihad when we come back in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and the thing is about sort of Almiron's approach to the penalties. I actually think against Grimsby, the whole thing was blown way out of proportion, to be honest. I've seen coaches and managers on the side when there's a penalty shootout sort of looking the other way, and players do it. So I don't really see why managers aren't allowed to sort of watch the penalties. I just think the whole thing was blown out of proportion because everyone just tried to pile the pressure, obviously, after the Grimsby result. What's your opinion on his comments? Well, sort of going into the Burnley game and straight after the Grimsby game, where he said, well, sometimes I feel like I want to quit, and then sometimes I feel like I want to manage this club for 20 years. This is sort of what my squad puts me through. What's your reaction and opinion to those words?
I think those are the kind of words that need to stay out of the public. I think saying it in the public does not really set a good sign. It's like if you turn up to your job and you sort of say to one of your colleagues privately that, sometimes, I feel like I enjoy it here, and other times, I feel like I want to quit. Those are the things that need to be kept behind closed doors, really, between you and, your close colleague or your boss who you perhaps maybe get on.
Yeah.
And they can offer that kind of advice to you, but to say that publicly in a press conference that's going to be shown all over the world was not a good idea. And I think Amorim needs to watch that back. And if I was the Glazers right now, even though I don't really trust the Glazers at all, or if that's Sir Jim Ratcliffe listening to that, he won't take that too lightly, and he has no reason not to do that. And well, he has no reason to take it lightly, as what I was meant to say. But yeah, I think Ruben Emmer needs to understand that this is Manchester United. It's not Sporting Lisbon or any of the other previous jobs like he's been at. This is a big, big role that anything you do say can affect the relationship between you, the owners, the players, and of course the journalists, particularly the ones that are close to Manchester United. You've got to win the journalists over, win the pundits over, win the fans over, win the players over, win the owners over. If you can do that, then you're in the right place. If you can't handle being able to say the right things in press conferences, you have no right to call yourself the Manchester United manager. So he's got to learn from this as Ruben Amorim. I don't know what perhaps he said after the game, unless you know something, but on the back of what he said prior to the game against Burnley,
Yeah.
I was not on board with it at all.
Do you not think, Tom, you've been a little bit harsh just because? Do you not think one of the reasons, one of the main reasons I feel like United fans have stuck by him all this time and have gotten to really like Ruben Amorim is because of that honesty and that the things he does say sometimes, okay, they might come across very a bit too honest sometimes. I remember when he said about we're the worst Manchester United team in history and other comments. But in a way, I know what you mean about if I'm Sir Jim Radcliffe listening to that, I'm thinking that I sort of employed that guy and he's basically saying about some days he wants to quit, some days he wants to stay. So I get it from that point of view. But at the end of the day, that's just an honest assessment of where we're at as a club and where he's at as a manager and what they're putting him through as a manager. Don't you think it's a pretty honest review of the state we're in?
He's entitled to say that we are nowhere near where we want to be. That's honesty that the public can be on board with. Saying it's the worst Manchester United team ever is a stretch too far to be saying whilst you're under a contract at Manchester United.
Yeah, but come on, Tom, man.
If
Tom, man,
yeah, I get that, but he's under a contract to know when, to know what and what not to say publicly.
Mm.
And it's the same with players. Like Roy Keane got booted out of Manchester United for criticising players on MUTV whilst he was injured. So if players get kicked out for criticising the club or criticising certain players within the team, What do you expect the owners to do, and what do you expect the manager to do? And I would apply the same thing with the manager. If a manager's caught saying that and criticizing, you know, the club, let's say, or criticizing the squad, because that's what it felt like when he was saying there are times where I want to quit and sometimes I want to stick around. It's still not a good thing to say. If I was the Manchester United manager, I'd be more pragmatic and I'd be more vigilant with what I choose to say.
Yeah, I mean, I do I get what you mean, and I think there's sort of two sides, especially as a fan, that you can think of it. Me personally, I actually really like the honesty. I think nowadays, I think from a football fan point of view, we actually feel like we can relate, and the players and the coaches who are more sort of likable and just say it how it is. I think within society that there's not enough of that. So I feel like when you see sort of footballers and managers that don't just say the old boring media trained answers, I think that gives us that there's that likable trait that you go, you know what, you're not trying to kid a kidder here. This is the situation, and just say it how it is, and I kind of like that. I get what you mean about, okay, there is a line where you do need to toe, and obviously it's not great going past that line, but I don't think Almeron's stepped foot over that line yet. I mean, the worst Premier League side in history was a bit brutal, but it was factually true. So we'll see. Someone, Tom, that did get more minutes on Sunday was Kobi Maynou, and we'll sort of talk about sort of the idea that he obviously wanted to leave, I believe, and Almiron is blocking that loan deal at the minute, I feel like. And we'll talk more about Kobi Maynou and more of the outgoings and ingoings just after we take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the GSPN Daily Manchester United podcast, part two of this episode, when I'm joined with Tom. Now, Tom, in the first part, we talked about sort of Ruben Almiron and his tactics. Now let's talk a bit about his players, because before the international break, Tom, there's one more significant day, which is, of course, transfer deadline day, where all teams and clubs have to settle on the players they want to move into this season. Now, Tom, one player that did feature on Sunday and against Grimsby actually was Kobi Maynou. Since the announcement and the revelation that came out that he had requested to go out on loan, Almiron's now said he wants to keep Kobi Maynou. Your reaction on that, Tom? Good decision to sort of want him to stay.
Yeah, I should think so. I think Kobi Maynou needs to be in that Manchester United team. I mean, I'm just worried about his mindset at the moment because, yes, he wants to be involved. And I think one factor to consider is that it's the World Cup next summer. He needs to be playing football. So I get from Kobi Maynou's point of view as to why he wants to go out on loan. He clearly still wants to be a Manchester United player, but if he's going to play in the World Cup, he obviously needs to be getting some game time. And he's worried that he's not going to get that at Manchester United this season. That's why I think he's been wanting to go out on loan, because he didn't say he wanted to leave permanently. He just wanted to go out on loan. So with the fact that Amorim made it clear to him that he wants him to stay and he wants him there, tells me that he's going to get some minutes. The question is, how many minutes? Because we're going to get injury and suspensions throughout the season from one player to another. So there's going to be a chance for him to get some minutes and take advantage of that.
Yeah, and to be honest, this is where I would have drew the line with Amorim. I'm I still back Amorim, but if Almiron's system took priority to the point that players like Kobi Maynou had to find football somewhere else, to me that's disgusting, and to me that would have sort of made me turn my back on Almiron. I mean, I've fully backed him and supported him this whole time. I do think this game against Burnley, if we didn't win the game, and look, I know it wasn't pretty, but we eventually did get the win. But I was heading into this Burnley game even going, do you know what? If we draw or lose this game, and we go into the international break and we come back and the system and the way we play football and the way we're set up is still the same, then I've lost my faith in Almiron. So I did believe if things didn't go well this weekend that we had to change the system anyway. In terms of the Kobi Maynou situation, that is, as I said, one thing that would have turned my back away from Almiron, because I just think that would have been a step too far. And I mean, if you're so in your own head and delusional to a point to not be able to get Maynou into your system, and so much so that he doesn't even get minutes off the bench, clearly because he's wanting to leave. And you hit the nail on the head, Tom, there, where I think it is about purely just game time, and obviously the World Cup's next year. Maynou was one of our best players when he came in under Southgate in the last Euros. So to think that Kobi Maynou can't get into our squad is disgusting, to be honest, when you've got the likes of Agate and Casemiro getting more game time over him. So Kobi Maynou stays, Tom, and obviously a few more. We've managed to keep a few players as well, Tom. In terms of any more sort of incomings, obviously in I think today of recording, we have apparently agreed personal terms with Martinez at Villa. In goal, obviously we were heavily linked with Lemez, I think, the goalkeeper over in Belgium, I believe. That seems to have fizzled out now. Now we're turning our attention one day before deadline day for Martinez in net for Villa. Your thoughts on that?
I wouldn't blame United if they got both of them, because we need a number one and we need a number two in our team. You put Martinez in between the sticks, that's your short-term first-choice goalkeeper. You bring Lemons in, who can play as a number two, who can play in the odd game to begin with. He's more of your long-term solution, potentially. Because clearly, Onana and Buendia are not good enough. And Tom Heaton, well, he's going to be in his 40s by the time this season's over, and we don't know whether he's going to retire or not. So clearly you need to bring both goalkeepers in if you can help it, but realistically it feels like it's going to be one or the other in this window.
Yeah, and Tom, I remember a couple of weeks ago I laughed at you for the suggestion of playing Tom Heaton over Buendia, and now I agree with you. So only a couple of weeks later, Tom, going into that Burnley game, I probably would have played Tom Heaton. So you could see the future, my friend, and I apologise for not believing in that shout. And maybe you should be on the touchline, mate, I think. But in terms of the Martinez sort of transfer, to be honest, I don't blame United for going out and getting a keeper. I think it's evidently clear now that goalkeeper is probably our weakest position now. I used to think, oh, let's get a midfielder and maybe we can just sort of see out the season with Onana. Like, he's not terrible, but he can get us through a season. But after that Grimsby game, he has to go. And same with Buendia, to be honest. And it's a serious problem we've got there. And I think Martinez would be perfect. And I know, look, a lot of people since the World Cup, obviously he played amazing out in Qatar, but a lot of people have said, oh, he's declined and he's a bit overrated. Honestly, I think he's perfect for United. That personality, that leader, that goalkeeper is going to come and dominate and have that passion, have that mindset that I think Bruno and Cunia and Lissandro, that almost that South American mindset where it's a bit, in your face, passionate, but aggressive. And that's what we need for a goalkeeper. And that's what we're seriously lacking at the minute. You see every corner. It's sort of flapped at by our goalkeepers. We need that goalkeeper who's going to dominate the area and really rattle a few feathers. And I think Martinez is perfect for that. Look, he's not the youngest keeper in the world, but I think for right now, we need a bit of a short-term solution for our goalkeeper problem. I mean, it's dire right now. So we just need a goalkeeper that's going to sort of perform at a decent level for the next season or two. And then maybe we think about a younger option, like sort of City are doing now with Trafford. So although few tough games for Trafford, for City. In terms of the outgoings, Tom, that sort of bomb squad they got nicknamed with is nearly all out the door. Obviously, Rashford, we'll come on to Rashford actually in the final part of the podcast, but Rashford is obviously completed his loan move to Barcelona. Garnacho is in the final stages of completing his move to Chelsea, and Lindelof on a free agent to Aston Villa. So the only two that are really left really are Malacia, who I think will end up completing a move back to the Netherlands, and the only one that seems to be a bit of a more serious circumstance is Jadon Sancho. Obviously, he was rumoured and on his way to Rome until that deal, I think, broke down because of some contract negotiations. But Tom, just on the two that are pretty much confirmed at the minute, Lindelof and Garnacho. Start with Garnacho to Chelsea. What are your thoughts on that move for him?
I know some people are going to be cross with what I choose to say, but I'm glad he's out the door now. And I think 40 million was the best that we could have hoped for. Because if we had asked for 60 million or 70 million, no one would have taken it. No one would have taken him. So the fact he's out the door now and not having to worry about that wage bill, and given all of his social media antics, I'm glad he's gone. And I don't care what anyone thinks. I think his attitude has been totally abysmal. He's let the manager down, he's let the players down, and he's let the fans down at the club. And he's totally turned on them. So the fact that he's gone out of the club now, imminently, is a sigh of relief. Now we just need to deal with the other deadwood that we've got of Malacia and Sancho. I mean, I have a lot more respect for Malacia because he's hardly featured. The manager's not played him, but if you've got a manager that's not playing him, there's no point keeping him. So he's gonna find a club eventually. Well, Malacia, he's got a lot of years left of his career. My position with Sancho is pretty. It's pretty discernible. You could just tell by my body language. I've been really unhappy with him for some time, and the fact he's not apologised or owned up for the way he's been acting in recent years for Manchester United tells me everything It tells me everything I need to know about him. And
yeah. I know what you mean, and honestly, I feel like a lot of fans feel like that about Jadon Sancho. And to be honest, I feel like now a lot of English football fans, Chelsea fans definitely, feel what we feel right now, where such a talented player, but it just never materialised, and it's just such a waste of talent, I think. And we're going to look back at Jadon Sancho's career, and it's going to be, unfortunately, I think it will be a case of what could have been and what might have been. And he's never really had that England breakthrough, which we'll get more on England in just a minute. But yeah, he's never really had that international breakthrough, never really found a home. Okay, Dortmund, they loved him out there, but as soon as he left for Germany back to England, it's never really worked out for him. And yeah, he doesn't seem to be in any hurry to get some game time either. On the Garnacho situation, I just think it's quite sad, to be honest. I think, again, with him, what a player he could have been at United if it wasn't for his attitude and just a mutual agreement. And I just think from a club's point of view, from a player's point of view, it was about the right time to move on, to be honest. My only concern is the move, to be honest, to Chelsea, because I think, look, okay, it's a big club and Chelsea are making some moves, but I also feel like there's going to be a lot of competition in that Chelsea side, and I just worry how much game time Garnacho is going to get, because of course he's a talented player and I think he can be successful at a certain team. Do I think that team's Chelsea? I'm not too sure, to be honest. I think we could see him move to another team in a couple years' time. So yeah, but fair enough for him for making a step to another big club, I guess. And just a quick word on Lindelof. To be honest, I think that's a solid little move for him. Villa, not a bad side, and again a team making their own moves there under Emery, and I think he could play a little part there over at Villa Park.
I agree, and I think, especially with the Europa League games coming up for them, where he's played in the Europa League before for United, I think he's going to bring that kind of experience into a squad that is, I think, the right fit for him. So best of luck to him.
Yeah, and best of luck to Victor Lindelof, and one player also that we're gonna touch on in the final part of this episode is Marcus Rashford. We'll talk Marcus Rashford and England just after this quick break. Welcome back to this final part of the GSPN Daily Manchester United podcast. Now, Tom, we've talked about Sunday and Amorim and transfers and what might occur in this next 24 hours. Now, something that was breaking news last night was the announcement of the England squad. Marcus Rashford, Tom, back in the England squad for the first time in a while. Thomas Tuchel announced him as one of the members of the squad. Barcelona play as we speak right now, actually. But yeah, your thoughts on that? And I mean, we've seen Marcus Rashford in an England shirt before, and he's been a key player really in different squads. And it's good to see Thomas Tuchel put a bit of faith back into him.
And I'm surprised he's been given that opportunity. I think he needs some time at Barcelona to prove himself first before he warrants being back in the England squad. I'm finding it amazed, actually, he's given him the chance. I don't know if he's totally oblivious to the fact that he's hardly contributed for Manchester United in the last year or so. But, let's hope that Rashford on the pitch in an England shirt can do what he needs to do in the games against Andorra and Serbia. And, and maybe he could be an asset for Tuchel's side for when they get to the World Cup. Because let's be honest, they'll get to the World Cup, no problem. It's just who's going to be there and who's going to be performing well over the course of the season. I think going to Barcelona could be a good move. I think it's a different league, has a different challenge compared to what he's used to in England. But if I was the England manager, I wouldn't put Rashford in the squad. But that's just me.
Yeah, I know what you mean, and the concern for Tuchel will probably be the amount of game time he's had. But to be honest, I just think it's to see what he's about. I think Tuchel's gone, you know what, we've got 2 games, not 2 very tough games, but let's just see what you got. And obviously Marcus Rashford will have something to prove. So I think it's a really good opportunity for him. And I actually rate Tuchel for going, you know what, yeah, you haven't had much game time, but you've got your move to Barcelona. They must believe in you. He's actually starting in the game tonight against Rayo Vallecano. So they've put some faith into him, Barcelona, for taking him on to a loan. And I think Tuchel's gone, you know what, you got your move. You're going to get some game time. Let's see what you've got for me. And make me believe in the sort of Marcus Rashford hype train, which a lot of managers have done. And he was a big influence in Gareth Southgate's squad and teams. And yes, obviously not much game time of late, but I think this is something that a big opportunity for Marcus Rashford to prove himself really. And and another player I'm sure who will be in his international team, which we actually did touch upon, but we should, to be honest, is Rasmus Højlund. I'm sure he'll be part of the Danish side, and he seems like he's got a massive move as well. On loan to Napoli, linking up with his old friend Scott McTominay, Tom. And I don't know about you, but I think he'll really do well at Napoli.
I back him to thrive over at Napoli. And when you look at former United players there now, of McTominay, Lukaku, and one other player that is there, I can't remember which one. You might have to fill me in. But you've got Kevin De Bruyne, who's also at Napoli. It's crazy what the team that he's been put together over at Napoli. So they just need to qualify for the Champions League now, and then he's on his way out.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I did see there was an option to buy if they qualify for the Champions League, and to be honest, I thought it was a bit of a weird thing to throw in there, because if Napoli don't qualify for the Champions League, I think it would be really disappointing on their end. But in terms of that move, again, like with Garnacho, I do think it'll be a really good move for Højlund. Obviously, it's a bit different to the Garnacho situation because he's only gone on loan. But I think it can be a move where you're playing in a really good Napoli side. It seems like a really good mood in camp at the minute. You're under a world-class manager in Conte. But again, it's a similar concern that I have with Garnacho. I'm not sure how much game time McTominay will get, because obviously he won't be the first choice striker, but I'm sure he will definitely get enough minutes, whether off the bench or starting games, to once again prove himself to a lot of doubters. And obviously he made his breakthrough out in Italy, and that's when we spotted him and signed and brought him to Old Trafford. But I'm sure if he really performs in a Napoli shirt, and Napoli are very successful this season, I'm sure they would love to keep him over in Napoli. And Conte, obviously, as I said, I really like Conte. I think he's a world-class manager, and I love what he's cooking up in Napoli at the minute. And I think the whole energy around Napoli, and I watched their highlights the other day with the De Bruyne goal when McTominay scored as well, and they've just won. They won in the last minute yesterday as well with Anguissa 90th minute goal. So they seem like they're on the right track at the minute, and I think it's a great club to just go in there, get a bit of confidence back. And whether they go, you know what, we want to keep this kid and feel like he can be a valuable asset for us, or we think the exact same thing about him and say, you know what, hopefully we can keep him in Manchester. But again, like we said with Victor Lindelof, really, really good luck to Rasmus, because I feel like as a United point of view, we all want him to succeed and turn into the player that we saw glimpses of in the first season. So good luck to Rasmus, and we'll definitely keep an eye on Napoli. If you haven't been already, you should have been with the obviously the god over there, Scott McTominay. But United fans will have all eyes on Napoli, I'm sure, this season. But Tom, mate, that pretty much wraps up this episode, mate. It's been a pleasure. Covered a lot of things, and we'll see in the next 24 hours how that deadline day goes. You never know, the next time you listeners or viewers might see myself or Tom, we might have a new number one in goal, and we might be talking about his influence. But for now, we've got the England internationals to look forward to. And then, as Tom mentioned at the start of the episode, a massive game, which of course we will preview against City, the Manchester derby. But for now, it's goodbye from me, and it's goodbye from Tom, and we'll catch you in the next one. Goodbye.